It all started on the 14th of March, the night of my parents' 20th wedding anniversary. It was a wonderful sunny day, if memory serves, surprisingly warm for before the beginning of spring. The beautiful weather was perfect for the atmosphere of the day. Being married for 20 years is obviously a momentous occasion, so my parents had booked a table at our favourite Italian restaurant. Of course, this was a formal occasion, so I had my best suit on. It was 5:33 and I was just straightening my tie when my phone went off. I'd received a message. That's strange, I thought. That rarely happens. I checked the message and it was from my mum. It was quite a jumble of numbers and letters, but through the garbled text I could make out one legible phrase: "Please help me." It should go without saying that this worried me greatly, so I immediately replied, "Are you okay?" Just as instantly I got another text which read, "Oops, pocket text." I sighed with all the relief I had and continued to prepare myself. A few minutes later I received another message, this time from my dad. I checked the text and once again it was a massive mixture of letters and numbers with the phrase "Please help me" concealed within. Creepy though this was, my dad was always a joker, so I presumed he was joking around, until I was sent another text saying "Oops, pocket text." Now this sparked panic. Pure, unmistakable panic. As exactly half a minute passed when I received the exact two same messages from my sister. This could not be coincidental, it just couldn't. In a state of sheer anxiety, I started to run to the restaurant. I made it about a quarter of the way before I was stopped by a police officer. "Main road's closed," he said. Huge car crash. This was the exact moment I realized just what had happened. I demanded to see the wreckage, a request which I was surprised to be granted. When I got there, it wasn't the remains of the car that caught my eye, nor the smoke billowing from the destroyed vehicle. No, I was horrified to see the lifeless bodies of my mother, father, and sister. I asked for the estimated time of their deaths. All three of them were killed instantly by the collision at 5:32, 1 minute before the very first text. A man went to a hotel and walked up to the front desk to check in. The woman at the desk gave him his key and told him that on the way to his room there was a door with no number that was locked and no one was allowed in there. She explained that this was a storeroom and that it was out of bounds. She reminded him of this several times before allowing him upstairs, so he followed the instructions of the woman at the front desk, going straight to his room and going to bed. However, the insistence of the woman had piqued his curiosity. So the next night, he walked down the hall to the door and tried the handle. Sure enough, it was locked. He bent down and looked through the wide keyhole. Cold air passed through it, chilling his eye. What he saw was a hotel bedroom like his, and in the corner was a woman whose skin was incredibly pale. She was leaning her head against the wall, facing away from the door. He stared in confusion for a while. Was this a celebrity? The owner's daughter? He almost knocked on the door out of curiosity, but decided not to. As he was still looking, the woman turned sharply and he jumped back from the door, hoping she would not suspect he had been spying on her. He crept away from the door and walked back to his room. The next day, he returned to the door and looked through the wide keyhole. This time, all he saw was redness. He couldn't make anything out besides a distinct color red, unmoving. Perhaps the inhabitants of the room knew he was spying the night before and had blocked the keyhole with something red. He felt embarrassed that he had made the woman so uncomfortable and had hoped she had not made a complaint with the woman on the front desk. At this point, he decided to consult her for more information. She sighed and said, "Did you look through the keyhole?" The man told her that he had, and that she said, "Well, I might as well give you the story of what happened in that room. A long time ago, a man murdered his wife in there, and that we find even now whoever stays there gets very uncomfortable. But these people were not ordinary. They were white all over, except for their eyes, which were red." In the town of Bisden, nobody leaves their home after dark. As soon as the sun begins to set, shutters are drawn shut, candles are snuffed out, and doors are locked tight. Before the moon is fully risen, the entire town appears deserted, and silence reigns supreme. "Did you hear that?" whispered Freya, sounding very small and afraid in the dark. "Shut up," her older brother Freud hissed through clenched teeth as he eyed the black windows of the house nearest to them. They were probably locked. Nobody in their right mind would leave their windows unlocked at night, not in Bisden. "I told you we shouldn't play in the forest," continued Freya. "I said we should go back sooner." "And I said to shut up," Freud went on. Whining about the past does not change the present. Freud looked at his sister, shivering in the dark. It doesn't change the situation we're in. Before Freya could respond, the faint sound of a child's laughter floated across the wind. Goosebumps erupted along Freud's neck and arms. Something about the sound seemed wrong. Maybe there's other... Freud clasped his hands across Freya's mouth, pulling her in close. He shrank back into the shadows of the alley. Again, the unearthly sound drifted across the air. Freya tensed in Freud's arms as she realized the magnitude of the situation. The child's voice, oddly distorted, broke the silence of the night like a fist through glass. Come out, wherever you are. The thing lumbered across the mouth of the alley, just a few feet from Freud and Freya's hiding place. It was roughly the size of a child, yet shuffled with its arms hanging grotesquely close to the ground, making its disproportionate body appear markedly ape-like. It was completely nude, and had skin so shockingly white that it reflected the glow from the moon. The thing turned its shimmering bald head towards the alley as it crossed. Its face was perfectly smooth and entirely devoid of feature, save for an impossibly wide smile with thin lips the color of blood. The crimson slash of its mouth appeared to stretch from ear to ear. Freud felt warmth spread down his thigh as his bladder let go. Freya whimpered. The thing froze mid-stride, its body becoming as rigid as stone. Slowly, it turned its torso until it was facing the alleyway. It took a tentative step forward. Freya sucked in a sharp breath through her nose as she began to hyperventilate. Freud clamped his hand over her mouth, but it was too late. Impossibly fast, the thing twisted its head towards their hiding place, producing a sickening crackle from its neck. Found you. In the town of Bisden, nobody leaves their house after dark. Every day, young ones are sternly told to be home by dusk. They are told of the evil that haunts the streets at night. They are told to always remain silent, because if they hear you, the children of the moon will tear you limb from limb. Many a sailor, no matter how brave and fearless, knows well how unpredictable and deadly the sea can be. Before every setting of the sails, a prayer goes out throughout the crew, praying to God for the safety of their voyage. A wise man knows that prayers are not always answered, and many a man has travelled to the briny depths of the sea, never to be seen again. Some men say, though, they have managed to cheat death in these moments, with a ritual that may not be worth living for later. The ritual is fairly simple, but not one that somebody wants to use unless they are in mortal peril and know it. Providing they are not sinking fast enough for the water to choke their words, a man must repeat the words, "Devil, take my soul across the Styx," 3 times at the top of his lungs. If he truly puts himself and his soul into it, the ferryman shall come. No matter how much the waves rage and toss, his ship shall not be turned, nor shall he capsize. The man shall feel his wrist grabbed and pulled onto the boat. From there he will not feel the waves rocking him. He will feel no hunger, no thirst, only the breath in his lungs and the wind blow softly across his wet face. It is important that the man does not look up into the eyes of the ferryman. This is because calling him out is a trick. You see, the ferryman will not take a soul across the Styx without payment. He will hear him speak. When he does, he must proclaim that he is without payment and needs to get it from home. The ferryman will then begin to row to the sailor's home shore. He cannot look at him for the entire way. If it takes 3 days and 3 nights, it will not matter. This is because if the ferryman looks into your eyes, he will know you are lying, and return you to the waters to drown. When you finally reach the shore, the sailor must thank him and tell him he will return shortly. The sailor can never return to sea after this. The ferryman will never come to the shore to collect, only be there by the water, awaiting his payment. If a sailor does ever set foot on a boat again, he and all the men on it shall perish in a violent and destructive manner. Be warned though, one cannot outrun the ferryman forever. I know a man who is in his last years and fears closing his eyes at night, lest he pass from the world and his soul meet the ferryman once more. He feels the grip around his wrist tighter and tighter at night with each dream when he finally falls into sleep, and sees a monstrous face looking at him enraged. No one truly cheats the ferryman, he is simply far more patient than most realize. Halloween is by far my favourite time of the year, the one wonderful day where walking around with a mask on is socially acceptable. Masks hold quite a unique place in society. A mask can transform anyone into something else, turn an actor into a character, hide the secret identity of a superhero, or even allow monsters to walk among men. You never know what's behind a mask until it's taken off. But that's the best part of Halloween. No one is going to take off anyone's mask. There is no gang of teenagers with their talking dog there to strip away my disguise and reveal the truth underneath. No, this is reality. And on Halloween, I am perfectly able to hide in plain sight. Of course, wearing a mask has its own special meaning to me. I am not an actor, superhero, or even a monster. Well, not in fictional terms at least, no. I simply use a mask as a means of entry. Any mask works really, so long as it covers my face. I manage to use a different one every year. All I need to do is walk the streets of my suburban neighborhood, weave my way through various decorations and dodge packs of trick-or-treaters until I hear the familiar blaring of loud music. Like a sailor to a siren at sea, I'm drawn to the music, to the party that it emanates from. Yes, this is why Halloween is wonderful. No one ever seems to ask questions at the door to a Halloween party. All I really need to do is knock and wave when the door opens. The mask makes people just assume I'm there for the party. Hell, sometimes people just leave their front doors wide open, allowing even easier access to their home. On Halloween, no one gives a second glance towards a masked man making his way through their midst, which is why it makes my hobby oh so fun. They are completely oblivious as I approach their food. They continue to chatter and gossip as I add my own special ingredient to their bowl of punch. They continue to dance and play as I stab small, sharp needles into their chocolates and sweets. It's not until their first friend drops to the floor, either choking on my poison or coughing up bloody needles, that people start to panic. It is the same every year. As soon as I leave the party and hear the chaos rising behind me, an unstoppable grin forms under my mask. Screams of terror are such pleasant noise for such a pleasant holiday. Here I lay, all snuggled up in bed, warm and satisfied under the soft silk covers, watching some stupid documentary on TV that I'd never heard of. I'd turn it over, but the gallon tub of cookie dough ice cream wouldn't let me use my hands for anything other than shoveling the frozen treat into my mouth. Nights like these are rare. It isn't often that everyone's out of the house but me, so I make sure to savor them. In fact, I wasn't expecting anyone back until the morning. That's what made the sound of the door opening downstairs so alarming. Panic hits me like a steam train. I silently leap out from under the covers, spilling the ice cream all over the pristine white carpet on the floor, and creak open the wardrobe next to the bed. I hear footsteps, heavy and indiscreet like they want me to know they're there. I panic and pick up the spoon I'd just been using to enjoy a relaxing night. The footsteps get louder. I force myself into the minuscule space remaining in the wardrobe and close the door, just as the stranger opens the bedroom door, not sparing any seconds for silence. I peer through the gap. His face looks familiar, but I can't place my finger on where I know him from. He spots the spilled ice cream and darts his head across the wide expanse of the bedroom. "Hello?" he calls. Not sounding vicious, but I've made that mistake before. Never, under any circumstances, assume friendliness from a voice. He looks under the bed. Oh crap, he's looking for someone. I hold back a whimper and start bending the bowl of the spoon back and forth, hoping to snap it off and create some way of defending myself. It snaps, but creates a metallic click. The man turns his head around and makes his way to the wardrobe. I'm shaking now. Please don't open it. Please don't open it. The door swings open, and he sees me. We scream simultaneously in fear and surprise, and without hesitation I leap onto the man and start digging into whatever stretch of flesh I can with the sharp edge of the spoon handle. He screeches in clear pain, but I won't stop. I hammer the handle deep into his chest and neck over and over till he becomes motionless. I've killed him. I cry in disgust and sprint downstairs away from the house. I charge down the road until I feel like I'm far enough away. I sit down for a moment and exhale heavily before regaining my composure. Pulling out my phone, I open Twitter and search #party. Hopefully this time I'll find a household that isn't lying when they say they'll be out all night. In June 1972, a woman appeared in Cedar Sinai Hospital in nothing but a white, blood-covered gown. Now this in itself should not be too surprising, as people often have accidents nearby and come to the nearest hospital for medical attention, but there were two things that caused people who saw her to vomit and flee in terror. The first being that she wasn't exactly human. She resembled something close to a mannequin, but had the dexterity and fluidity of a normal human being. Her face was as flawless as a mannequin's, devoid of eyebrows and smeared in makeup. There was a kitten, clamped in her jaws so unnaturally tight that no teeth could be seen, and the blood was still squirting out over her gown and onto the floor. She then pulled it out of her mouth, tossed it aside, and collapsed. From the moment she stepped through the entrance to when she was taken to a hospital room and cleaned up before being prepped for sedation, she was completely calm, expressionless, and motionless. The doctors thought it best to restrain her until the authorities could arrive, and she did not protest. They were unable to get any kind of response from her, and most staff members felt too uncomfortable to look directly at her for more than a few seconds. But the second the staff tried to sedate her, she fought back with extreme force. 2 members of staff had to hold her down as her body rose up on the bed with that same blank expression. She turned her emotionless eyes towards the male doctor and did something unusual. She smiled. As she did, the female doctor screamed and let go out of shock. In the woman's mouth were not human teeth, but long, sharp spikes, too long for her mouth to close fully without causing any damage. The male doctor stared back at her for a moment before asking, "What in the hell are you?" She cracked her neck down to her shoulder to observe him, still smiling. There was a long pause. Security had been alerted and could be heard coming down the hallway. As he heard them approach, she darted forward, sinking her teeth into the front of his throat, ripping out his jugular and letting him fall to the floor, gasping for air as he choked on his own blood. She stood up and leaned over him, her face coming dangerously close to his as the life faded from his eyes. She leaned closer and whispered in his ear, "I am God." The doctor's eyes filled with fear as he watched her calmly walk away to greet the security men. His last ever sight would be watching her feast on them one by one. The female doctor who survived the incident named her the Expressionless. There was never a sighting of her again.